this is an event that we are organizing to give a heads up about the Nobel Prizes 2025. So today we have a moderator, Dr. Shubhashree Desigan. She is a renowned science journalist and associate editor with IIT Madras Shastra magazine. She holds PhD in physics, and she had a decades of experience in Hindu as well, Hindu, and she initially she was teaching in BITS Pilani. She'll be going to be she is going to be the moderator for this event. Before we start the event, we have three speakers from three disciplines. Dr. Sivakumar from Kriya University, I welcome you, sir. And Dr. KSP from Kriya University, I welcome you, sir. And Dr. S. Krishnasamy, he is a retired professor from Madurai Kamaraj University and visiting professor in IMSC. I welcome you, sir. I welcome all the audience for this event. This is going to be recorded. I would like you to keep your mic mute until the discussion is over. If you have any question, initially we will have a few briefings and what is the role of this panel discussion will be announced by Dr. Shubhashree. Before I hand over the mic to Dr. Shubhashree, let me introduce Tamil Nadu Science Forum. I don't want to take much time on introducing the TNSF. TNSF is a voluntary science organization which was functioning from 1980 onwards. It was started by a few scholars from Madras University, Nuclear Physics Department. And initially we had the TNSF was functioning as an organization conducting hall meetings. Today it expanded into various activities, and particularly it has been organized into 7 different verticals. Now we can say that the science communication, we start with science communication. Now we also do the science publication. We also do the motivating the women to come into science. That is a separate group working on it. Is called Samam. And we have youth for science. We are working on health, and we are working on environment development. So there are various activities going on in Tamil Nadu Science Forum, and it has a state level organization with a duly elected state bodies with a structured way of functioning, and we also have district body. This event is organized by a branch, a PSL branch coming under Tamil Nadu Science Forum, South Madras district. So with this now, let me hand over the mic to Dr. Shubhashree. She will start doing the moderation, and she will introduce the speaker as well as the role of this, how we are going to conduct it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijayan, for that introduction. And Sundar, is it being recorded?
I'm switching on now.
Okay. Thank you so much for the introduction, Vijay. Good morning to everybody, and welcome to this wonderful panel discussion where we have 3 eminent speakers going to speak to you about the Nobel Prizes. There is also a Nobel Prize guessing competition challenge, which has been advertised. I invite all of you to participate in that. So we will now start the panel discussion. So as all of you may know, on the first Monday of October every year, a Nobel Prize is given to a person who has done outstanding work in medicine or physiology. To talk about these fields and the coveted Nobel Prizes, we have here today Professor S. Krishnaswamy. He will speak first for 5 minutes or so. He's a structural biologist who retired as a senior professor from the School of Biotechnology, Madurai Kamaraj University. He did his PhD from the Department of Crystallography and Biophysics, University of Madras. This department has a great track record. The famous scientist G.N. Ramachandran, who has done research worthy of a Nobel Prize, was from this department. After doing his PhD, Professor Krishnaswamy did postdoctoral work on viruses at Purdue University, US, and tRNA synthetase complex in University of Strasbourg, France, before joining the Madurai Kamaraj University as a faculty. And his group at MKU worked on structures on membrane protein, prophage proteins, and proteins involved in aggregation. So proteins are very much in vogue today. Professor Krishnaswamy is part of the Tamil Nadu Science Forum and All India People Science Network. Then, after he finishes speaking, Dr. Shivakumar will speak about the second category of prizes, that is in physics. Dr. Shivakumar is a professor in physics and Dean of Research with the Division of Sciences at Kriya University. After getting his master's from IIT Madras, Dr. Shivakumar joined the Department of Atomic Energy as a scientist. He contributed extensively to the theoretical and experimental physics aspects of the operation and design of the research reactors at the IGCAR Kalpakam, Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research. His more recent interests are in the quantum optics and quantum information frontier. He is passionate about teaching physics at all levels and has 2 decades of experience teaching courses at various levels. He has mentored several physics and engineering students, many of whom have taken up research careers. His other interests include mathematics and the history of physics. He enjoys reading all genres of Tamil literature. He is also fond of detective novels and English literature. So, he will speak just after Professor Krishnaswamy for 5 minutes on the physics related stories of the Nobel Prize. On the Wednesday following the first Monday of October, a Nobel Prize is given for path-making work in chemistry. To talk about chemistry and the Nobel Prizes, we have here today Dr. K.S. Vishwanathan. Dr. K.S. Vishwanathan is a visiting professor in the Department of Chemistry, Kriya University, Sri City. He retired as professor from the Department of Chemical Sciences, Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Mohali, ISER Mohali. He obtained his PhD in physical chemistry from Vanderbilt University, USA in 1983. Before that, he did his master's and undergraduate in chemistry from Vivekananda College, Chennai. His research interests include the following: matrix isolation infrared spectroscopy for the study of conformations, non-covalent interactions, reactions of high temperature species, and so on. Fluorescence spectroscopy of lanthanides and actinides, laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, glow discharge spectroscopy, and spectroanalytical methods. He is interested in science education in schools and universities. He is also partial to sports such as cricket, tennis, table tennis, and so on. And he loves music. I'll briefly introduce the format of the panel discussion. So after the intro just gets over, first Dr. Krishnaswamy will speak for 5 minutes on medicine, physiology, and the Nobel Prize. And Dr. Shivakumar will speak for 5 minutes on physics and the Nobel Prize. Dr. Vishwanathan will speak for 5 minutes on chemistry and the Nobel Prize, after which we have a round of questions to each panel member from the moderator, that is me. Then we have questions from the audience. You can always post your questions on the chat box as you are watching the panel discussion proceed and people talk. Then you can, part C will be after the panel members respond. We may have one more round of questions and then the closing remarks by panelists in about 1 minute each, after which we will come to a close of the program. So I now invite Dr. Krishnaswamy to speak on the Medicine or Physiology Prize and the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, good evening all. Thank you, Subhashri. Thank you, Vijayan, and thanks to Tamil Nadu Science Forum for organizing this. It's a pleasure to talk about this Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology. Though I am really not related to medicine or physiology, it's just that I happen to be a accidental biologist, and but then nowadays Nobel Prize is this classification thanks to Nobel as well. But these classifications are getting more and more archaic, as even some of the Nobel Prizes denote that this border between chemistry, physics, and biology, they are merging so much. And but then, since it is there, I just want to share my screen. I just because I will. Yeah, so I've shared the screen. I hope people can see it. It's just that there is a the medicine and Nobel Prize, medicine and physiology Nobel Prize came up from 1985 will of Alfred Nobel. I just want to take you through the initial Nobel Prizes, which are really spectacular in terms of the 1901 prize that was given to von Behring for serum therapy against diphtheria. So it's a clinical related one, and obviously it saved a lot of children. And then came the work that was done by Ronald Ross in India, but he got the Nobel Prize. Of course, he was not Indian. So in 1902, he got the Nobel Prize for finding out mosquitoes' role in transmitting malaria, which again was a spectacular breakthrough because it showed about epidemics and how to handle them, so on. And then came the 1903 prize, which is again first demonstration of how physics could be used to solve some medical problems. And this case, using concentrated light rays to treat a form of tuberculosis and skin infection called lupus vulgaris. And this treatment is still in vogue. And obviously, it's still fully not understood, actually, the biology that goes behind this. But these, and then came the one by Pavlov that is well known about digestion and physiology of digestion in 1904. If you actually look at that, all four of them, the first three are typically clinical based thing, and the Pavlov's also a bit related to the clinical aspect of it, because he really doesn't go into the too detailed biology of the digestion part. And interestingly, also now that there's a cap of 50 years on all the nominations and the things that go on to for people to get the Nobel Prize. But that 50-year limit, because it started in 1901 up to 1950 or so, that has been lifted. And so now you see that if you look at the archives, you see Pavlov's name has been nominated by a lot of people at that time. Really, it seems to be extremely popular in terms of Nobel Prize nomination. So I just want to look at the thing broadly. If you look at from 1901 to now, it seems in early years were mostly clinicians who got the prize with clear medical or clinical implications. So it was like what Nobel wanted, really. And then the next 50, I mean, this is all a broad cutting thing, just try to generalize looking at what are the prizes. The next 50 years, you see a shift towards basic research backgrounds, foundational discoveries, which sort of helped this clinical aspects and so on. And then after this period of 90, 100 years, you see nowadays the last at least 30, 40 years, so the stress has gone on to basic science, genetics, immunology, neurobiology, molecular physiology, plus of course some clinical applications. For example, the MRI that got a prize in under the physiology and medicine category, discovery of the MRI. So these are obviously clinical application, but then I think that this also shows a trend how science is progressing, especially in terms of biological sciences, that more and more it's molecular aspects that are being stressed, and so that's also reflected in the Nobel Prize, I think. And incidentally, the Nobel Prize in medicine and physiology just did drive a lot of research in areas, and also made, as Nobel wanted, a difference to, I think, a lot of people. And this difference to humankind is a very broad thing, and we will see later which humankind really actually gets reflected in that. So now let me go to the next slide. Yeah. So I again done a broad classification. This is extremely, I hope people will sort of forgive me for doing this sort of thing. But what I've tried to look at is what happens in the last 50 years sort of thing. And you see the decades are there. So if I divide into some 4-5 groups, from 75 for about 10 years, most of the work was on molecular biology and immunology. And if you go through the Nobel Prizes, about 8 of them out of the 10 do satisfy this criteria that they belong to molecular, but there are exceptions. For example, the classic exception, which is on computer-assisted tomography. That you would really think is a physics one, but then it comes into biology in 79. It was given, and then the next one is on neural thing related to 81 on brain hemispheres and visual processing. Eric Kandel and so on. So then the next phase works out to more of cell biology, genetics, and neuroscience. The reason I'm trying to do this is to say that no, it's not. There seems to be a trend which you see, especially I guess because the committees involved, the sort of work that goes on in those periods. So cell biology, genetics, and neuroscience. In this, all the 10 come into this category. So there's no exception on this. And then the next 10 years from 95 onwards, you see it's mostly developmental genetics and neurology, which again shows that there are a lot of developmental genetics did the preceding, because the Nobel Prizes to after the effect generally doesn't get given immediately when the work starts. It's about a lag of 5-10 years at least usually. So the developmental genetics was taking off, and you see that 9 out of 10 match this, except the classic exception, which I also mentioned in the beginning, is on MRA by Lodber and Mansfield, which really would come under physics. But then because there's a lot of clinical applications, the same thing with computer-aided tomography, CAT scan, there's a huge amount of physics, medical applications. So it got awarded under the Nobel Prize for Medicine or Physiology. And then comes the next decade is mostly on infections, stem cell, and brain, about how infections, the basic biology behind infections, and parasites, and so on. Here, all 10 of them again, come into this category. The next 10 years, which is the last decade just before now, is mostly to genomics, immunity, and then of course modern therapeutics, for example the CRISPR-Cas9 and then the COVID thing. So this sort of thing happens, but there is a very classic exception which it's on 2022 prize to Pabo, which is on looking at genomes of extinct hominins, what is called ancient DNA work now. This, I guess they had to give it, and they didn't know what category it could be fitted in. It obviously couldn't be fitted under physics or chemistry, so they shoved it here. And of course, as you all know, there's a lot of things. For example, there's overlap between chemistry and this the work on ribosomes, classic thing which we know, got awarded under chemistry. So a lot of it you find thing coming under chemistry, and of course what Subhashi referred to in the beginning, also the one that missed the Nobel, that missed the man, was G.N. Ramchandran, who the work on collagen was a classic one, and that obviously you would think would come under medicine and physiology, because collagen is sort of essential to the all vertebrates. But then it didn't get, because of a variety of reasons, mainly the geopolitical considerations. And but the similar thing on the work by on looking at Pauling, the alpha helix part, or the DNA Watson and Crick. Again, that DNA Watson and Crick, of course, did come under medicine or physiology. But if Crick could get for the DNA and the medicine, then you would think that collagen by J.N. Ramchandran group should also have got it under medicine. But that obviously the Nobel Prize was became less. I mean, it had less amount of to say that okay, the stamp of approval from across the world, because obviously if somebody who worked on collagen is so important didn't get it, then what's happening? So if you look at what's happening, Then you see between 1901 and 2024, there were 115 awards, because obviously the awards didn't happen during when the World War was happening. So this awards goes to 229 laureates, Nobel laureates. Of the 229 laureates, classically as is expected, only 13 have been women. It's about 5.7%. We see this happening in all fields, but here it's very striking. And then if you look at it based on citizenship, this is a bit of a tough thing, because citizenship, some have dual citizenship. So just going by the primary workplace. For example, if you look at the recent one, Kathleen, I think she got Krakow. So she was both Hungarian. I mean, she was a US citizen, but she also got Hungarian citizenship later. She was born in Hungary, but then put her under US. So like that, of course, all the people whom we mistakenly claim as Indian in terms of Nobel, just because they got Nobel, except for C.V. Raman, obviously, who was Indian and worked in India. So I put all of them under the US or the European category as thing. So, for example, Venki Ramakrishnan. No, Venki Ramakrishnan, I mean, he was there as a young till this thing, and then he went off to work in US and then subsequently in UK. And so I put him under the Europe category. So no, it's sort of this sort of thing that is there. But so if you look at it, USA backs a whole lot, about 109 of them, and Europe gets about 104. Europe is a sort of amalgamation with different countries on this. So the not the current day Europe, but the old Europe, not the European Union. So UK comes under Europe in this case. So about 104, about roughly the same. In the US, you see that 1/3 of them really are for immigrants, people who have moved into US and settled there subsequently. So Trump may have a bit of a difficulty with that, but anyway, that is a thing that's there. So if you look at Japan, Canada, Australia, all about 4, 5. Russia is about 3. This Soviet Union, Russia combined together, and Israel has 1. Argentina has 1. Argentina, actually, if you look at it in terms of, you can put 3 people who are in Argentina in terms of their background, but this is the only guy who really stayed in Argentina and did the work and got it from Argentina. That's on sugar metabolism. And then China has got 1 woman, that is the famous 2015 UU2 on work on malaria artemisinin. And then, of course, India, no. Africa, that's a whole African continent, no. And if you look at all of them, you're saying, so blacks, if you take, there's no black. It's all white Caucasians who are there in this. So obviously, this is a very biased prize which is there. And so a lot of hype about the prize, I really think is not justified. And we also join the thing in this. But just to end on a lighter note, Richard Roberts, who got this Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology for his work on split genes, he came up with a small, in PLOS Computational Biology, a simple light-minded article about 10 rules on winning a Nobel Prize. Then the first one is, of course, never start your career by aiming for Nobel Prize. Basically, it says you work for the work, not for the prize. And then you can see the whole list of them. I'm not going to read it all that. But the 9th one is sort of tongue-in-cheek thing, saying that always be nice to Swedish scientists. No, because they're the committee. So there's even a small thing by Venki Ramakrishnan where he writes about his work, where he talks about how he pissed off a Swedish guy once, and he was a bit worried that whether he'll get the prize or not. So this sort of thing, and then of course he ends it with saying study biology, because biology has a lot of open-ended questions, which may be there in physics and chemistry also, but more so because our understanding of biology is much less. So that's all I have for now, and thank you all. I'm done. I don't know whether I overstepped my 5 minutes, but if I did, I'm sorry.
Just a little bit, but that's fine. Thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah.
Swami, for speaking on the Science of the Century, which is biology, medicine, or physiology Nobel Prize. I invite now Dr. S. Shivakumar to speak for about 5 to 7 minutes on physics and the Nobel Prize.
Thank you, Dr. Desikan, and I thank the organizers for the opportunity. I
Your
think,
voice is low.
Yes.
Is it better now? Still it is low?
Now it's better.
Okay. So Professor Krishna Swami did a beautiful way of organizing.
Shiva, your voice is still very muted.
Am I muted?
Is it better now?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Now that's better.
Okay. So, Professor Krishna Swami did a beautiful job of, decade-wise segregation of biology prices under various topics. That is something probably is not true in the context of physics. It has sort of moved from one area to another area over the years. So in the initial years, of course, it was mostly around contributions to quantum theory. That's where it was. But subsequently, you would see it would go from cosmology to condensed matter physics to something in technology, and that has happened. And I also would like to start by talking about the first Nobel Prize winner in physics, W. Röntgen, known for his invention of X-rays, if you want to say it that way. So when his Nobel Prize was announced and Röntgen apparently decided not to patent his discovery or invention, whatever you want to call that. And his argument was that great inventions and discoveries should be useful to humanity. So he never patented his X-ray that he realized in the laboratory. And there are a few more like that who refuse to patent their, whatever they did as a part of their research. One is, of course, Madame Marie Curie. She also refused to patent her discovery. So Nobel Prize winners are great human beings, not all of them though. Some of them have gotten into controversies. But to focus more on physics Nobel Prize, just to give you some statistics, there are about 226 individuals who got Nobel Prize in physics, sometimes it is shared Nobel Prize, of which there are only 5 who are women. Okay, it is in fact smaller than what Professor Krishna Swami said in medicine, which is about 5.6%. Here it is not even that. Okay. So we will talk about if there's an opportunity later as to why probably these things have happened. And if you broadly classify the areas where Nobel Prizes have been given, you can say in terms of foundations in physics, like basic concepts in physics. Then there are applications like lasers, for instance, transistors. Those are all, I would say, applications of physics ideas. They have been given there. And there's also Nobel Prizes to technology, like for instance, blue LED, which was given a few years ago, which is going to revolutionize the way we produce light and more efficiently to add to that. So these are the 3 broad categories, but there is no specific time periods over which one particular topic got more Nobel Prizes than the other. Okay, that's what it is. And to say something more about the kind of trend that is happening in Nobel Prize that people are getting, you would see that the way we do science has been changing over the years. In the initial days, it was all isolated individuals working in big research labs and trying to do some foundational or seminal work, and then it is recognized immediately or much later. One famous example, of course, is Subramaniam Chandrasekhar, who did his work in 1930s and got his Nobel Prize in 1980s. Okay, so there could be that much delay. And Einstein, for that matter, got his Nobel Prize much later, though he was sort of, kind of a poster boy of physics right from 1905. He got his Nobel Prize in 1930s. In fact, after Schrödinger and Heisenberg got, Einstein sort of recommended Schrödinger and Heisenberg for Nobel Prizes, and they both got much before Einstein. Okay, I'm not sure whether this is a true story or not. But when Einstein's name was proposed, this famous physical chemist, Arrhenius, the Arrhenius plot, the famous Arrhenius, he was objecting to giving Nobel Prize to Einstein, basically because Einstein's theories were not verified. Okay, though even newspapers were talking about Einstein, something that doesn't happen to every scientist. Newspaper headlines, you would see Einstein's name appearing, but This did not happen. So of course, this became possible because there is an embargo on releasing these communications for 50 years. So you will get to know what happened in a particular only 50 years later. So now what the kind of transactions that happened between Nobel Prize Committee and the people who recommend, that would all be available with a period of 50 years. Okay. Now, are there controversies that happened in Nobel Prize Awards? I would say very few, not so much like you would find in other areas of Nobel, like for instance in literature or Peace Prize, not so many controversies in physics, but not to say that there was none. There were, of course, cases where there were controversies. Okay? And these controversies were not in the sense that an undeserving candidate got, but rather to say there are equally deserving candidates who were missed out. So that's okay. And I think that is something that would happen in any selection process. There will be deserving candidates who might miss out and somebody else will get. But what I can definitely say for sure is that everyone who has got Nobel Prizes so far, they all have really contributed to the discipline. And the Nobel Prize, of course, is a celebration of something very fantastic done by those individuals. So Professor Krishnaswamy said maybe we are attaching too much hype to this. That might be partly true, but definitely it's a celebration of the spark of genius that human minds can have. So this is roughly the introduction that I wanted to give. And there are a few questions probably the moderator is going to ask. Maybe I'll have more anecdotes to reveal at that time. Maybe I'll stop here. And
Thank you so much, Dr. Shivakumar. That was a very crisp and concise view of the physics side of the Nobel Prize. You also talked about the archiving of the highly secretive way of selection, which we will all come to in the questions. Meantime, I invite Dr. Vishwanathan to speak for about 5 minutes to 7 minutes on chemistry and the Nobel Prize.
Thank you, Dr. Subhashri.
Thank you.
The chemistry Nobel Prizes, if you look at the very first prize that was given was for Van 't Hoff for his work on osmotic pressure and in very fundamental areas of physical chemistry. And the first few decades, if you look at it, the prizes were usually won by solo scientists. It was a single person. And it was usually for very fundamental discoveries in chemistry, like Arrhenius got it for his theory of electrolytic dissociation. Moissan got it for discovery of fluorine. Ramsay or Rayleigh got it for the discovery of inert gases. So it was for very specific purposes. But when you come back and look at the prizes in the last maybe 15, 20 years, you will see that it is always for collaborative areas. It's, in fact, a lot of the prizes in the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years have gone for chemical biology. It was for discoveries made in biological problems using tools of chemistry. Like if you look at the 24 prizes, it was last year, it was for protein alpha fold, which was a theoretical procedure for elucidating the structure of proteins. 22 was for Bertozzi for chemical biology, and Doudna and Charpentier for gene editing, the CRISPR technology. 2018 was for chemical biology again, and 2015 was for DNA repair. So every other year in the last couple of decades, has been for problems that span chemistry and biology, and that's the way it has been. A few prizes, of course, have gone for instrumentation, like super resolution microscopy in 2014 by Morner, Betzig, and Hell. Cryo-electron microscopy in 2017. And earlier than that, it was for, NMR spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy, won a prize, where Tanaka and I think it was, I forget the name now, they got it for mass spectroscopy. So it has been, a mixture. But the point is, in the last few years, it has always been for, areas overlapping chemistry and biology. And every once in 10 years, computational chemistry has been winning a Nobel Prize. Like the last one was in 2011, I think. 2013, which was given to Warshall, Lewis, and Karplus for their computational methods for large systems. Uh, in a few cases, it has been for very specific areas, like 2019 was for lithium ion batteries, which was given to Yoshino, Whittingham, and Goodenough. In fact, Goodenough was probably the oldest Nobel laureate, I think, in the history. In fact, I was always of the opinion that Goodenough should have been given a Nobel Prize much earlier. And every year I would predict this year it is going to be Goodenough. And then I was getting worried because he was getting close to 96, 97, and he was still working. And if they don't give it to him now, and then, and if he is no more, then he can't get the Nobel Prize, and which he very richly deserved. Finally, he got it in 2019. And I was quite happy that they gave it to him eventually. And I think a couple of years later, he was no more. But he's been the oldest Nobel laureate that we have seen. Um, Organic synthesis and very specific areas, of fundamental chemistry has not been in the forefront, but maybe once in a while they do get it. Like 2005 for the metathesis method and organic reactions, and palladium catalyte synthesis in 2010. So it's like once in 5 years or once in 7 years that you would get something that is very fundamental in chemistry. It has always been more for collaborative areas. The other thing that one should notice is that while in the first 50 years, it has always been scientists winning a Nobel Prize all alone, in the last few years, a single person winning a Nobel Prize has been not the rule, it has been the exception. Like the last one that I can think of is in 2011, when Dan Shechtman, who won it for quasi-crystals, 2007 for surface chemistry by Ertl, 2006 chemical biology by Kornberg. These are probably the very few occasions where single people have won the Nobel Prizes. It has always been a team that has won it. And that has, I think, probably because I think in the last few decades, collaboration has become a lot more easier because of the ease of communication. And therefore, I think people collaborate a lot. And that is also the reason why Nobel Prizes are given to groups of people who have been collaborating. And it's only very rarely that single winners have been cited. The Nobel, of course, one can talk of a lot of anecdotes. Shechtman stands out because his discovery of quasi-crystals, where he talked about five-fold symmetry in crystals. And if you pick up a chemistry book, it will always tell you that five-fold symmetry does not exist. And Shechtman said, no, it does. But the crystals is not the classical type of crystals. And I think he went through a lot of trolling at that time because people just wouldn't accept the idea that such a thing can actually exist. And no less a person than Linus Pauling actually put him down in many conferences saying that such things don't exist. But Shechtman stood his ground, and finally it was proven that he was right, and for which he was rightfully given the Nobel Prize in 2011. There are a lot of many interesting anecdotes that one can talk about, and I think I will reserve it for later discussions. But the lesson to be learned is that the winners of Nobel Prizes have been more for collaborative areas in the last 2 decades or so, and less for very specific discoveries and areas. And Krishnaswamy did mention that do biology. I fully agree with him, but I would add do biology through chemistry because that's where all the Nobel Prizes seems to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vishwanathan. And now our speakers have walked us through a wonderful range of topics, the social, the scientific aspects of the Nobel Prize, and Dr. Vishwanathan just said that you have to walk he just gave examples of how you must walk the less trodden path and so many things. We'll discuss more, but first we'll go to some subject-specific questions now. So first, let me go to the physics prize. So I would like to ask Dr. Shivakumar, increasingly Nobel Prizes are going for hugely collaborative efforts. As per the Alfred Nobel's will, the prize can be divided at most between three people. But however, the prizes are going to research that involves thousands of people. For example, when the prize was given to Rainer Weiss, Barry Barish, and Kip Thorne in 2017 for the detection and merger of two black holes using gravitational waves, there were only 3 Nobel laureates, but the paper announcing the discovery had 1,000 authors. In the same way, if you consider the prize given for the imaging of black hole, again a huge collaboration, but only 3 Nobel laureates. Can we deduce that the lot of Nobel class work, especially in physics, involves huge collaborations? what is the importance of these huge experiments? Are they simply huge and are they simply Nobel worthy, or is there other virtues to doing such huge experiments? Lastly, is it possible to do such experiments in India?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Desikan. So let me address these questions one by one because you have a bunch of questions listed there. So yes, the recent experiments that you spoke about, they all involve large number of people, thousands, yes, precise. That's because these experiments also involve integration of various technologies. Let us just to take the collider experiment that before this black hole experiment. So a collider typically would require people who know high vacuum techniques, people who can handle low temperature, people who can do data analysis, okay, and people who can work with the detectors. All these people are there. So you will find engineers, you will find trained physicists, you will find doctoral students, postdoctoral students. And do they all deserve Nobel Prize? That's a question that one can ask. But let us also ask the other question. So what is actually sort of driving these projects? Because there is a big question that has been raised by a few individuals. Okay, it could be to figure out whether a standard model is good enough or whether there are Higgs bosons floating around. So those are the big questions raised by a few individuals. In the process of trying to answer these questions, these huge machineries have been set up. So these people all have contributed, that there is no denial at all. But the basic key or the seed for having all these facilities come from questions which are essentially sort of cleaned up and properly formulated by few individuals. And the three names that you mentioned in the context of black hole gravitational waves, they are the people who have significantly contributed to what is it that you can measure if you want to really detect gravitational waves. Therefore, their contribution is definitely far ahead of other people who contributed in the experiment. This is not to say that they don't deserve recognition. They have gotten the recognition because they are all now authors of these papers. Just imagine, this would not have been possible maybe 40, 50 years back. I'm sure Professor Krishnaswamy also talked about Watson and Crick. There are controversies there that some student actually did the work, but it was not even mentioned. And even in India, people have spoken about C.V. Raman not mentioning Professor Krishnan's name during Nobel Prize. Okay, so these kind of controversies are there. But not to say that Krishnan is not a qualified physicist or anything. But Raman definitely did work which actually was the key to identify Raman effect. In the same way, in these experiments, we do have key people who contribute significantly and they deserve Nobel Prize, no doubts about that. As I told you, because so much of new technology is involved in this, you cannot manage with a few hands to do these experiments. These are huge experiments involving a whole lot of technologies. As I told you, in the context of LIGO, which actually detected gravitational waves, you have people who work with optics, people who work in quantum optics, people who work with a huge, balance. It's called a bar, Weber bar. How to construct Weber bar, which is tons and tons in weight, okay, which will be sensitive even if a truck passes by. So how do you actually ensure that those kind of noises are removed? So you need people who are experts in data analysis and so on and so forth. So when the question is so deep, to me, it looks like probably you cannot avoid a very collaborative work. So that's the reason why we have to do this kind of work. There will be individuals still who will be toiling with the very fundamental ideas, trying to push the frontier. But finally, verification may still involve requiring large number of people to contribute. That's one. The second question that you asked is whether such experiments are possible in India. That's the other question that you asked. India is actually participating in setting up a LIGO here. So the LIGO detectors have to be set up in more than one place. Okay, it's not enough to detect gravitational wave at one location on Earth, in a few locations, so that you can triangulate and figure out where the source is. So India is participating in one such experiment. Okay. But can a country do it all by itself? That is also not possible because you cannot geographically locate many of these things in one place and try to figure out what's really going on. We need to locate them at various places, and therefore it becomes essential that many countries get involved. That is second thing. The other question, what is the other question that you asked?
is it these experiments, are they only Nobel worthy, are very fundamental, or do they have some relevance to society?
So, okay, I'll come to this. Are they Nobel worthy? In my opinion, yes. Let us simply ask the question. When Einstein formulated general theory of relativity, people would have thought it is it's a very magnificent theory, mathematically very beautiful. People even sort of give the name the most beautiful theory that they ever know. So 40, 50 years back, if you had asked anybody, oh, it is for a bunch of theoreticians who are interested in manipulating symbols. But now we know that if you do not know general theory of relativity, your geolocation, GPS, just won't work. Okay, so when something will become relevant for society is something that we can't predict. The second part, that is usually the argument given by scientists who want to do mega projects, saying that there are byproducts which will be useful to society. I have a different view on that, because we have developed so much. If there is a problem in, let us say, in medicine, I don't have to pump in millions and billions of rupees to do a physics experiment whose byproduct will help me to solve something in medicine. We are not at that stage, because the world is so connected and you have various kinds of research going in various places. There will be able to sort it out. I think these questions deserve to be answered, and therefore we should invest. There may be a question of whether you want to do it now, whether you want to do it later, whether a single country can do. That is a different question that we need to answer. But the other question that we need to ask is, are there alternate ways of doing this? Okay. People have come up with ideas like a tabletop accelerators. They said, why do you want to always accelerate these particles to such a high energy, consuming so much of money? Instead, look for particles which come from cosmic rays, which are free, and see whether you can capture them, and from their signals, whether you can actually answer the question that you want to research. Those are the kind of areas that one should explore. So I would say that we don't have to invest huge amounts saying that some byproduct will be helpful somewhere, that we are not at that stage. So whether these are Nobel worthy, yes, they are. And should we be investing in these things? Yeah, so there it depends on which side you belong to. So I would personally say, yes, you should invest, because these are very interesting questions.
Thank you. Would either of the other panelists want to say something on this question, or can I move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just have one small thing. This is just to show, if you look at that Rich Roberts tongue-in-cheek, rules, one of the rules is that when you collaborate, you make sure you collaborate with not more than three, because that's
Yeah, that was a very nice list, amusing, and it's quite insightful also. So I'll go to the chemistry question now. The 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, Dr. Vishwanathan, went to the discoverers of AlphaFold, as you mentioned also. This is an AI tool that predicts protein structure. It was a fuzzy picture that people got in the interface of biology, computation, and chemistry. Increasingly, the prices are moving into interdisciplinary areas. In fact, in 2024, even the physics prize looked like a prize for computer science. So, coming back to chemistry, how do you react to this? Are there more worthy areas in chemistry that have been ignored in favor of more computational work? How do we understand this?
Oh, it's always the case that, once somebody gets a Nobel Prize, we can point out to n number of other fields which we think would also have been considered for the prize. And that argument is going to be there for every single year that we talk of. So, but I have never ever felt that any prize that was given has been unworthy of a Nobel Prize. That has never been the case. So they surely deserve the prize, but the question is, could somebody else have got it? Yes, somebody else could have got it. Maybe with a different committee, the winners would have been different. And that's basically the issue. But I don't think in the history of the Nobel Prize, anybody has been given a Nobel Prize, where they did not deserve it. And as we said, the computational chemistry and computational biology has been getting prizes once in 10 years, I think now, if you look at it, every once in 10 years it's been going to these people. But I think increasingly, we have to resort to good computational methods to actually interpret our experimental results. I've always been saying this, that good experiments without competitions is lame, and good competition without experiments is blind. You need both of them to actually interpret what you actually see in the laboratory. So I think increasingly, and the question of collaboration, yes, there's been a lot of people who have been given prizes for collaborative work, collaboration between theory and experiments, collaboration between different experiments, and so on. So yeah, it could be fuzzy. The picture that you get could be fuzzy, but it is the very first step in trying to unravel a very, very complex problem in biology. And protein structure is completely a non-trivial problem, and its role in functions and structures is being completely non-trivial. And maybe the computational people are just starting to make baby steps in trying to understand this problem. So that's, I think, perfectly acceptable.
No, but my doubt is that, like as Professor Shivakumar mentioned, Einstein had to wait for 25 years to get his Nobel Prize. Many people who have done very fundamental work have to wait for long times, whereas in the case of AlphaFold or in the case of the black hole, the gravitational waves, the prizes were given quite immediately. So, would anyone like to comment on? Well, particularly for chemistry, do you feel that there are worthy areas? Yeah, Professor Shiva.
I
Yeah,
just
there have
wanted to
been
say, like,
people, I mean, in chemistry too. I mean, I would say Einstein was lucky that after some X number of years, he got the prize. There are many people in chemistry, physics, and so on who, after waiting for their entire lifetime, never got the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the question of whether some topics, just gain popularity right away. And that is the reason why they get Nobel Prizes, as soon as as soon as the work is reported. But some topics have to wait for many, many, many years before they are recognized, because they were probably, their research was well ahead of their time. And Sheckman's work that I talked about was exactly the case. I think he came up with these ideas, I think, way back in the 80s or something, but he had to wait till 2011 to get the Nobel Prize, because in the first 5, 10, 15 years of his reporting the work, people just would not accept it. In fact, he was asked to leave from a certain laboratory because they thought that him talking about all these questions of five-fold symmetry, which was against common tenets of chemistry, they thought was ruining their reputation. So they in fact asked him to leave. And I think the person who asked him to leave also said, while you leave, please take this book on crystallography and read it first. There is no such thing as five-fold chemistry, the symmetry. To which Sheckman said, yeah, what I have discovered has still not got into textbooks, and that's why I will never read it. So sometimes you just have to, you are far ahead of your time and you just have to wait it out to get it. Whereas some areas of research gain popularity right away and these people get it immediately. And I think that's basically it.
Dr. Shivakumar, do you want to-
I just wanted to say, of course, Professor Krishnaswamy will be able to confirm all this, because my friends tell me that few years, let us say 10 years back, one protein structure is one PhD thesis. That much time you need, okay? And particularly post-COVID, during COVID, you know how much struggle people had to actually delineate, decipher the protein structure. And here is a platform, a code, which can actually generate structures in matters of hours. Okay, and I think that probably had an impact on Nobel committee, that what people have to otherwise struggle for tens of years is all available now in matters of hours and days. So that is a significant advancement. Of course, people who actually are using experiments to confirm this will have to still toil. The experiments are not going to be shortened. And there is also a nice name for this computational process. It is not called computational chemistry or computational physics. It is called actually numerical experimentation. It has that kind of a, I would to say a fundamental aspect to it, because the equations are fairly well known, the fundamental equations of dynamics, and these things actually try to sort of solve these fundamental equations of motion. In that sense, they are actually experiments.
Would you like to say something, Dr. Krishnaswamy?
Yeah. I've written about this AlphaFold, and I think this AlphaFold, as Shivakumar said, yes, protein structure, even one structure, one thesis is too much. I think, and there were days where one structure took many PhD theses. So I mean, the point is that yes, it is there. There is a good method. There's a lot of ifs and buts with this method. It's true, and much of it there's. I mean, there's quite a bit of push that has happened in getting this thing. I think from behind, especially the push of Google and this thing is large. The Nobel Prize is not totally impervious to various considerations. So I think that is important to keep in mind. Of course, as what Vishnu said, Nobel Prizes, when I mean, irrespective of what it is, Nobel Prizes that are given are I mean, worthy of a good thing. They may not be the best that is there, but they are not also the worst. So I mean, that's the thing is there. So I mean, that particular case, for example, John Moult, who sort of never talked about, he's the guy who started the whole thing on the CASP, the critical assessment of structure prediction, which is really the one that paved the way for this sort of AlphaFold to come in, because get accepted, validated, and so on. So of course, John Moult was also included in the prize, but I mean, it is. For example, this intrinsically disordered proteins. Again, it's an area where it's like what Vishnu said about the quasi-crystals. It was never accepted for a long time, and now it's got slowly more accepted. But who knows, maybe something will happen more definitely in that. But I think what is important is that, the post-questioning is always a problem. It's a we just have to need to accept. I think this committee is can be biased. It is biased, and but then as Shivakumar said, this prize has it has something worthiness. It has some sort of a obviously a lot of money also attached to the prize, but then
Prestige.
I think the AlphaFold and also the other one that physics about for the neural networks part, this which was there. They both a lot of controversy was there in that thing, but this whole division of boundaries is again a totally archaic one, which I guess because the will is there, they're not able to break that thing. So it would be better to just call Nobel Prize for sciences and just give 3 prizes in science. I think that will solve much of the controversy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, SK, the AlphaFold is not the only tool that can do it. There are many great tools that can do the protein structure now.
Can I just add one point to what Dr. Krishnaswamy said?
Yes, please.
He was just mentioning about, that the Nobel Prizes are not beyond, controversial issues. And I think the strongest example they can even think of, I think, was Lewis. And we know Lewis was one of the pioneers in very fundamental concepts in chemistry. We talk about Lewis structures and Lewis electron models and so on and so forth. Apparently, he was nominated for the Nobel Prize a vast number of times. I don't know, about 30, 40 times, but never won it ever. And the reason being that he picked up a fight, and this Dr. Krishnaswamy said, never be unfriendly with Swedish chemists. I think he picked up a fight with Nernst, and Ernst is much more recent. Nernst, and Nernst actually knew people in the committee, and therefore it is said, of course, we would never know if it is true, that that blocked the way, and Lewis never won a Nobel Prize in his career, in spite of having made some extremely fundamental contributions to molecular structure and bonding.
That is also true of Dr. ECG Sudarshan, who has made fundamental contributions in physics and in both in particle physics and in optics.
Yes.
He
And
actually
even
fundamental to
GNR.
quantum optics,
And
right?
even GNR is supposed to have been a very potential candidate for a Nobel Prize.
Yes.
I believe the structure of collagen, the triple helical structure, was much more difficult to unravel than even the double helix which Watson and Crick did. But they got the Nobel Prize, and GNR gets no mention at all. So there are cases, where very worthy people have not been given.
Yes.
But I think it will be, as I said earlier, it's I think almost impossible to find fault with anybody who has got it.
Yeah.
Great.
Maybe
So
I
this
can
is
add a few more names to that list.
Yes.
Liquid Crystal Chandrasekhar from RRI. J.C. Bose and Satyendranath Bose. They belong to Nobel League. No doubts about that. So
This has been a very lively discussion so far. Are there any questions from the audience? Aditya, are there any questions which we can deal with now?
Madam, YouTube, there are no questions in the chat.
Yes, this is your chance, audience members. Please, in the chat box, you can type out your questions. And those who are in YouTube can also do that. We will deal with some more general questions and maybe come back to the audience remarks at that time. No opinions. It would be nice if you can ask questions instead. Please do that. So now I will go to another round of questions. So just 1 minute. Yeah. So the Nobel Prize announcement is a much awaited, very formal, very secretive ceremony. So nobody knows how it is decided. Can we discuss the procedure of how they select the candidates? How does the Nobel Committee decide upon whom to award the Nobel Prize this year? Maybe you can just take a short time to tell this answer to this question.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sense-
just that, no, it is, I mean, I don't think it's so secretive in the sense that the procedures are all laid out because there in the website, there is a list of, the committee, who the members of the committee are there. And then the committee members invite about 3,000 or so, people, institutions to nominate. And the criteria for whom to invite, and that is also there. So it's and then of course the invitations that are sent and the nominations that are given are kept secret, and this secrecy is also something very it's not part of Alfred Nobel's will. The will doesn't say anything about the 50-year embargo. There was something Nobel Foundation decided to put in, which I mean, I guess I don't know why they put it in, because that really is the one which makes a lot of problem. So if one day it had decided to be more transparent and say, okay, these are the nominations, see, these are the people which are there, and especially in this age of transparency. So since it's not in the will, it's up to the foundation to really change it and to be with the times. I think to make a change will be more, in the line of how things. After all, it's public money that goes in the sense that Alfred Nobel's will may be having the money, but the other prizes that are given, economics and so on, are not part of the Nobel's will also. So in a sense, when I said it's public money, it's just that obviously the money that was coming from Nobel has been invested. And is this money that is growing, is not the initial money that Nobel got for his dynamite work. So the patenting thing. So it's in a sense it should be more. But once the nominations are in, again there is a voting by the thing, and that assembly voting is what gives the final who will win. So in a sense, it's not totally secretive or transparent. It's just that because it's happening so far away and in a place like Sweden, that geographic distancing and so on, I think it's because people who are there obviously have better ideas of what is happening, especially the academic group that is closer to the thing. So, I mean, I agree that it should be more transparent, that there's no need for the secrecy. I don't know why they put in this clause. Yeah.
Will anyone else like to answer that?
One
Yes.
little thing that the
I'm not
final,
very sure. Yeah, go ahead, Vish.
the final.
Just 1 minute, Professor Vishwanathan. I think
Yeah.
Dr. Shivakumar started speaking. Could
Yeah,
you?
okay.
No,
Good.
no problem. I just wanted to add to what Professor Krishna Swami said. This 50-year embargo may be for some reason, something like this. The nomination requests are sent to all, not necessarily Nobel laureates. Okay. There could be a future Nobel laureate who could be sitting there. So probably that person would not like to jeopardize his or her possibilities of getting Nobel Prize by not recommending somebody. So maybe it is just to help them shield. It might be the case. Yeah.
Professor Vishwanathan?
Yeah, I think the people who are invited to make the nominations are Nobel laureates, very distinguished scientists, and some members of the Swedish or Norwegian parliament and so on. There are a whole bunch of people. But the final nominee, I mean the selection of the winner, I think there are different bodies given the job of doing that. I think the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences chooses physics, chemistry, and economics prizes. The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institute, they decide the physiology or the medicine prize. The Swedish Academy, I think, selects the winner for literature, and the Norwegian Nobel Committee selects the Nobel Peace Prize. So I think that's how final responsibility of selecting the Nobel Prize goes to one of these academies for the respective subjects.
Okay. I'll go on to my next question, which is also connected to two questions that our audience members have asked. So I'll collate all the questions and speak now. Many Indian origin scientists working abroad have won the prize, but only one so far for science from India. Are there not any worthy works? No, we know that that is not the case. So, can we discuss this? That is my question. There are also two questions from the audience which are related, which DBS has asked: is there any geopolitical bias in reflecting, which is reflecting in selecting the awardees? Of course, we know that it is still not at the cost of merit, but in any case, is there some bias? That is what they've asked. Suresh from Salem, Suresh D. Salem has asked, can you please throw light on Nobel Prize for Indian works on science, past and present and future? Yes, who will take it first, please? Dr. Shiva?
Yeah, okay. So that's right. The observation that many Indians who have gone abroad have gone on to win Nobel Prizes is true. It's a fact. We haven't had anybody, not many, or barring one, Sir C.V. Raman, no one actually worked in India and got Nobel Prize. So there could be many reasons for this. Some are simply a question of logistics, the kind of research facilities that we have. So that is one, okay. And if I'm not sure whether I can say it openly, but you go on to talk to maybe Professor Krishnaswamy and Vish when he was at ISER, they would be able to vouch for this. Even when you want to procure chemicals for your experiment, it is a long drawn process. Okay. So these are all big impediments to get your experiment done quickly. And before you can buy your chemical, probably a lab abroad would have completed the entire experiment. Probably the manuscript is in the pipeline to be sent. So that could be a major impediment. So these are some of the things that we need to do. But there is also, in my opinion, a cultural drawback that we have. We are not really courageous enough to throw out ideas. Remember when Kibble put forth his idea of gauge symmetry and then particles later associated with gauge symmetry, there was no experimental proof or anything. It is simply a theoretical idea, but he had the courage to write it up. And so that is something that we need to cultivate. Probably we should start right from our schools, that even if you do an experiment, if it produces a wrong result, don't bother, record it as it is. Okay, so that courage should be there. That's one thing that we should do. Of course, the kind of laboratory infrastructure that we can provide for our scientists is another. I'm not convinced that we people are any less compared to people from other places.
That was
Definitely
never
not.
implied.
Yeah, because you can see in mathematics, we have done extremely well. Of course, you can ask the same question, how many Fields medalists we have produced? That question needs to be answered, but we have mathematicians who are respected all over the world, that for sure. For the size of the mathematician that we have in the country, and from that size, how many are actually of great reputation? That's significantly high in mathematics. So if we provide right ambience and remove unnecessary hurdles for experimentalists to do their work, and for theoreticians, the other kind of facilities, collaborative work, possibilities for collaboration, I am sure we will be able to reach there. But remember, US also has a very nice system. They sort of spotted merit wherever it was and sort of transported them to the US. So they also had that So you just go and read the way Institute of Advanced Princeton was set up. So they wanted to they wanted to send a bunch of scientists to the UK or Europe, train them and bring them to the US. Instead, the first director said, why do you want to do this? Instead, we will bring them here and train hundreds of US citizens to be top-notch scientists. So that is the way. See, until he reversed the process, and now we know various Institute of Advanced Research. So being a postdoc there is considered very prestigious. Forget about being a faculty member. Even being a postdoc is a big achievement.
I think we don't have information on how to apply, where to apply, all that. Students would love that kind of information. Maybe we should have a seminar on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to throw light on Nobel Prize past, present, and future in India? Yes, SK.
Yeah, no, just that, no, I think, I mean, like in India and other places also, there are people who have gone outside, settled in US or Europe, and then got the prize. But I think from the Indian context, I mean, one obviously is that if you are in US or Europe, you have better access to the committee, and you're getting overall the visibility is much better. So impact factors, everything are much better if you are working from the US or Europe. And this can be seen from China and other places, which of course are coming up now. But I always felt that one major reason is that, especially from a personal viewpoint, also that the lack of democratic, at the democratic working atmosphere in the same, because you see in very rarely you come across any Indian labs or thing which are totally democratic, in the sense that from the initial student upwards, people talk freely. There's a lot of feudalism that still continues in our apparatus. And it may be less in some major institutes and so on, but across the board, it is a problem. And you are in see, one thing, whatever you may say about US or Europe, there's a lot of democratic environment at the micro level, working level. You may have other issues there, but and that makes a lot of difference. The environment in which we come, the society in which we are embedded, I think that makes a lot of difference. And then also what Shivakumar said about the infrastructure and the availability of things. The money is obviously a thing, the amount of money that is thrown into research. You can see that, for example, between China and India, where China has shown a massive progress with the amount of money that's got thrown in, and ease of doing research, which is also made available. India has a lot of talk on that, but I know, for example, that people outside who are trying to come in, they face a lot of decay. There's total lack of transparency. People apply many places, and there's no reply from any of the places about positions. And no, there are many who want to come back, but just are not able to come back because there's not, penetration is very difficult. And this, you can see, even it was there earlier. Subbarao, I don't know whether there's, forget his name, Y. Subbarao. He actually discovered that ATP mechanism. He went from India, and he came back. He really did try to settle here for a year or so, but just was this was early years. It just was possible. So he went back again. And that's after he went back only, he went into collaborate with people and got this ATP mechanism and so on. I mean, Janaki Ammal is a case of, I mean, she just came back and worked. I mean, she had so much of problems. In spite of that, she worked, and she did a tremendous work on sugarcane thing. So obviously, I mean, it's
Chromosome atlas also.
yeah. So it's a lot of problem that is there. It's, there are many examples of people who worked here and have not been recognized. J.C. Bose, example, and Birbal Saini. These are paleobotany things. So it is a problem that both, if you work here, your visibility, unless you are in the circuit, old boy circuit, it's very difficult to get visibility. And so there's a lot of factors, but I think many of them socio economic parts. And the main thing, of course, a huge amount of money that has to be made available and the ease of doing research that has to be done. Transparency is a major issue, I think. Mobility is also a problem. I think mobility, in most cases, you will see that scientists who have got this Nobel, they've moved on. No, even Karikó, she got things, she moved on to other places and then she got the work done. No, so Artem also, the one on sensors, temperature sensors, he also had problems with the thing. He had to move out from the initial places and then he did work. So in India, moving out from one institute to another is so difficult, especially it's not so commonly there. So all these multifactorial parts, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think even moving from one advisor to another is a very difficult thing, right? You can't collaborate with someone, a student. Yes, lot of problems, but is there any hope in the sense,
Can I
I mean,
just
of
go
course,
the
there's a lot of hope. I didn't mean it in that sense. What I meant was, is there any future prospect of getting Nobel Prize in India? Is there
Can I
any?
make a counterpoint to what has been just
Yes,
said?
please.
See, there was one question about geopolitical bias. I think bias is a perception. People might think that there is a bias or not. There is never going to be a process by which we can prove that bias was there. So I think that should not even be. It's a waste of time even addressing, or worrying about bias. Point number two is that over the last many decades, money has been poured into science in this country. May not be large amounts, but anything reasonably good amounts of money has been provided in the last 40, 50 years. I think we have been provided that money through various channels. But then we have, as we said, we have never got anybody in the category of a Nobel Prize. But then we are saying the same thing in every other field. Take sports, for example. We keep saying, we are a country with 130, 140 crore people, but how come we can never get Olympic medals and so on? So it essentially means that the same issue is cropping up everywhere. So I think it is important that we look into ourselves first to see what is really going wrong before we start blaming the system.
Okay. Point is well taken. And so we reached the last question of this program. Audience, please post your questions. If just one before that, I will inquire of Aditya whether there are any questions from YouTube yet.
So
No,
Yes.
there are no questions from YouTube so far.
just one comment on, I think the question that you started but did not complete, whether there is a scope in future for somebody from India to fetch a Nobel Prize. I think I will go to the first point that Professor Krishnaswamy flashed in one of his slides. Don't work to get a Nobel Prize. So just to focus on saying that I am going to do fantastic work. In fact, it's a very interesting thing that I read in current science. It is the international area of chemistry, and I don't know from which, either from Princeton or Harvard. The head PhD of chemistry was giving an interview, and some Indian reporter interviewed him, and he was asked a question. So, what is your criteria? What are the criteria to select faculty members in your institution? Is number of papers? He said that is one of the criteria, but that's probably not the main criteria. Then what is it then? Then he had a very interesting observation. So they write to various Nobel laureates and top-notch chemists, and they ask one question: has this person changed the way we think about chemistry?
Okay.
I think that's what we should be looking at. We should train our students to say, hey, is there an alternate way to think about the whole question or the problem that you are struggling with?
Okay.
That's what is going to really advance the field, and that's what will, then Nobel Prize is a byproduct, automatic it is.
Professor Shivakumar, just one counterpoint to what you said. Our only Nobel laureate in physics, only Nobel laureate in science, Dr. C.V. Raman, apparently he booked his ticket in advance. He was aiming for the Nobel Prize and he lobbied and he did a lot of things. And also, I mean, of course, his work was exemplary, no doubt about that. But he knew he was working towards the Nobel Prize. That is my impression.
Yeah, I think that's the point. He recognized that was an important work. Very often, even that recognition is not there, right? You do an important work, but unless you realize it is important, it is someone else who will recognize it. For instance, that's happened with Sudarshan.
That's true.
Sudarshan wrote VA theory, but it was Schwinger, Feynman, they recognized the importance of that.
Yeah. No, this thing of not working towards the Nobel Prize is sort of a post thing. I mean, initially people don't, but once they are at some stage where they recognize that there are a lot of importance and there's a there's a race for getting something. I mean, the classic thing what you read in Venki Ramakrishna's book. Obviously, at one point, he realized that this ribosome work is going to be a top contender, and he also tells about how much he did also lobby and how he got so bugged, and it is a. So I mean, it's part of human psychology that I think once there's some prize, people would look for it, but. Initially, I think more aimed at students and saying, no, you don't start your work with that. Maybe at some point when you're at some position, then you realize and you start working harder or doing something for it. And yeah, just in terms of the money that is there, I just want to make one anecdote type of thing. No, we do get a lot of money, but it doesn't get, say, for example, in a simple situation, this ultracentrifuge is something commonly used in biological work, I think. So, when I was in Strasbourg, the entire building, this IBMC had only one centrifuge. And that used to be, but that was available across the board, everybody. All you had to do is just put in a name and then go and start using it. When I came to MKU, I found that there are about 10 different things which have centrifuges. But here each becomes like a fiefdom. No, this acquiring lab space, acquiring some instruments become like some sort of a power struggle. And it's sort of, so you had these 10 instruments, but accessibility was zero. No, an outsider, most of my students used to go and work in the night. They had underground, networks which used to work. So, I mean, these sort of things are sort of ridiculous. So,
Oh, but
yeah,
Dr.
we have to get over
Krishnaswamy,
these.
actually, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is not the case only in India. Actually, if you read the book Lessons in Chemistry, she talks about exactly the same thing where one lab takes all the instruments and doesn't want. Of course, it's fiction, but and the person who's written it is not a scientist, but it can happen elsewhere too. I understand that it's not a rule. Rather, it's an exception most of the time. Uh, so, can we?
Can I make a point here?
Maybe time is getting on, so can I move on to the question? You can
Exactly.
also
I
answer
just
it.
want to make one point to what Krishnaswamy said.
Yes, please.
So, Krishna, whatever you just said is what I meant by saying let us look inwards first. That's exactly the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
And just one other thing, in my earlier organization, there was a very top-notch person whose policies I disagreed with on every single issue. But there was one thing that he said once in a lecture. He said, publish your work, but don't work to publish. And that is the only statement I completely agreed with him forever. But every other issue that he spoke about, I would have things to disagree with. That is one thing. That's very similar to what you're just saying, that don't work for Nobel Prize. He said, publish your work, but don't work to publish.
Yes. I'll just go to the last question I have for you. Of late, the Nobel Prizes have been given to socially and geographically significant areas like Malala for peace, climate science for physics, etc. It's interdisciplinary as well as relevant. Is there a trend behind this? Do we understand it that this is to convey the connection between science and society?
I'm not so sure that's the case because for environment, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was given in the early 90s for the unraveling the mechanism of ozone depletion. So every time that there is some significant work made towards, issues like climate change or whatever, I think they've got the prizes. So I don't think that the recent prizes in physics and in peace are any indication that we are moving in that direction. I think we are just recognizing when something crops up.
Okay. Any other comment on this?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think in 22 or 21, I don't remember now, the Nobel Prize for Complex Systems. That actually is more about weather modeling and capacity modeling, but as Vish pointed out, there is a lot of actually fundamental notions as to how to actually model. Those are basically physics and mathematics based. It is that which actually attracts. It so happened that it could be applied to atmospheric system as well.
Dr. Krishnaswamy?
Yeah, I don't think really that I think especially in the sciences, as in literature and peace and economics, maybe more so. But I don't think in the sciences this really. I mean, it's there's no clear indication. Of course, you can say what happened to the COVID, and then there's Karikaw and Weisman getting on this mRNA thing. But that is a post event, and it's of course. So there's no real thing that there is a movement to recognize, okay, this science has a lot of impact on society and therefore it's going to be awarded. I don't think that really is the case, not as yet. Yeah.
So that was Nobel's intention.
Okay. So thanks for all your comments. I would like to now invite you all to sum up your ideas of the panel discussion in 1 minute. I'll first invite Dr. Krishnaswamy because he started the thing. So
Yeah, summing up, I think is just that the Nobel Prize in medicine or physiology is something that has been very effective in the sense that it has pushed a lot of fields forward and it has really allowed things to grow. And this, as I said in the beginning, also that I think if there's some way to overcome Nobel's will and say, okay, this is it should be just 3 prizes in sciences and not physics, chemistry, and medicine or physiology, that should be done. And I think it's also important to grow competitive prizes, which something I think that is important. Maybe an Asian context, something to push forward, African context. So rather than become centered on the Euro-centered thing, there are prizes in the US, for example, Lasker and other prizes which are gaining a lot of popularity, which generally people who won the Lasker Prize also seem to win the Nobel Prize, that sort of thing. So I think it's necessary to push those things rather than get stuck in just looking at the Nobel Prize as a beacon. And it's also the fact that we should really think about. I think this is a point Venkiramakrishnan very much made when he came back here. There's such a sort of, he became like a god aura that is there. He was so fed up with all the things that was happening when he went around. It's important that it's this much of this we break the things which are barriers to doing really great science. That's important, I think, rather than hankering after a prize, which it's a feedback. No, we get into it because it's very popular. No, even for example, Science Forum arranging this thing, it's because there's a lot of popularity that comes up on this.
yes.
But I think it's important that we change our ecosystem of science.
Thank you. Dr. Shivakumar, would you like to say your concluding remarks?
Just 2 sentences. So as Professor Krishnaswamy said, talking about Nobel Prize definitely sort of attracts attention. So for instance, how many of us would have heard of Bhatnagar, who did a lot in chemistry? But we all know about C.V. Raman because of this. Okay, so I think we should talk about other scientists as well who belong to that league. And that should be the motivation for our younger generation. And there is one point which the former Director General of CSIR, R.A. Mashalkar, he said once, we should actually cultivate irreverence, not to disrespect scientists, irreverence. That is, question anything that is being said. Okay? And that is the only way to actually cultivate this so-called scientific temper. And that as a byproduct will actually generate great minds. And then as Krishnaswamy pointed out, Nobel Prize will look very little. So.
In Tamil, we say Lakshatla or Vartha. That is really a very nice summary that you gave, Dr. Shivakumar. It's one word in a lakh. So, Dr. Vishwanathan, would you like to conclude?
Yeah, I'll just give a couple of information that I missed earlier as my concluding thing. There have been 8 Nobel Prize winners in chemistry in the out of the total 197 winners, of course, 2 people got it twice, Sharpless and Sanger. But of the 8 winners, the interesting thing is the first was in 1911, then 1935, 1964, and then the next was in 2009. But very interestingly, 4 people have got it between 2018 and now. So there has been a number of winners, and particularly in 2020, both the winners were women, Charpentier and Doudna. So I think so this is an interesting profile that you can get out of the Nobel Prize winners.
Yes, there is hope that it will become more egalitarian and friendly in future. Thank you all speakers. You really participated with gusto and made this a very lively discussion. Thank you all, and thanks to Science Forum for organizing this and allowing me to be a part of it. Especially thanks to Aditya and Vijayan for organizing. There is also a challenge, guess the Nobel Prize area. Please do participate in that, and the prizes for that are sponsored by IIT Madras. And of course, it is organized efficiently by Aditya again, mostly. It is a very interesting thing. Do participate, even if you don't win the prize. As they said, don't be motivated by the prize rather than by the idea of thinking about things and all that. Is there any comment or question from the audience? People are saying thank you. R. Geeta says thank you for the session. And then DBS says thanks to TNSF and the speakers, eminent speakers. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
An absolute pleasure talking to you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.